The Unabiker's back. I've been away, took a long vacation from YouTube, from thinking about YouTube. Had other things to think about. It's all good. I'm back. I have a project I've been working on for a number of years. I want to do a little introduction to that here, and then I'm going to do some follow-up posts to illustrate what this project amounts to. I'll do some deep dives into parts of it. Essentially what it is, it's a encompassing bike record keeping system. If you own more than one bike, it gets more interesting in terms of remembering all of the details. But also just as a matter of interest for myself, and I had the time, so I did it. And it's been spread out over a number of years, so I don't sit down and slave away for months at a time at this. I just add pieces to it, and when I find a need to keep records on more, I add that to it. What it is, it's a spreadsheet. I've designed it using Apple numbers, but it can be converted into Excel or Google Sheets for that matter rather easy. And I can do that. If anybody's interested in seeing this and using it, I'm happy to share it with you and show you how to use it. It's not hard. I did all the design work. Basically, what it amounts to is inputting your own records into blank templates that I've developed. But this is a spreadsheet with about 20 individual tabs. Each one of the tabs is another spreadsheet. So it's the main file with 20 spreadsheet tabs in it. It goes across the whole gamut of everything you need to know. I kept my bike build records in there. I have spreadsheets that are very detailed about recording the weights and the costs and the sources and the model numbers of all the items that I bought. So if something breaks or I have to replace it, I have a reference for it. I did that for all three bikes that I built last year. I built a fourth bike for a German friend and did it for him and gave him the file. That's one part of it that may be of interest. There's everything. He asked me if I would develop a list of things that he needs to set up a repair shop to take care of his bike. So I never actually thought about it like that. So I put down a long list of every tool that you need, and if you have those, you can do pretty much anything on a bike that most people are going to attempt to do at home. I have a spreadsheet that I use to design gearing systems for my bikes to analyze what kind of gearing I need for the type of riding I'm doing now and where I'm riding, the roads I'm riding on. And it's adaptable for anybody's use. Your riding style is going to be different than mine, and where you ride is going to be different from where I ride. So it's 100% adaptable to your needs. But basically what it does, and this is going to be one of the tabs that I get into in more detail, and I'll demonstrate it using the spreadsheet, and we'll do a screen recording of it. Most people, when they buy a bike, they pay attention to bike fit, and that's important. You ought to do that. And more people are getting some kind of bike fitting, even if it's a basic thing at the shop where they bought the bike. Not so many people are actually considering the gearing on that bike. You buy it off the rack or out of the box, you get whatever the manufacturer put on it. What's that going to be? That's going to be a 5034 chainring with an 1128 cassette, almost for sure, unless it's a different type of bike. I'm talking about a road bike here. Why wouldn't you pay attention to what I would call the gear fit? I mean, that's how you're going to make the damn thing go. And one gearing setup is like a 50-34, 11-28, that's not going to work for everybody. That's unnecessary. Who needs an 11-tooth cog or a 12-tooth cog? 99 out of 100 riders will never be in that gear except to check it out once in a while or going down a mountainside like I used to do in Aspen, Colorado. So I designed this analytical tool where you can input different size chain set configurations and different cassette configurations, and the spreadsheet will calculate the gear ratios and the gear inch values for each gear. So now you have a chart. Now serious riders are used to doing this, you know, and you kind of keep that in mind so you know what the next shift is going to be, if you're going up or down, and if you have to do a double shift or not. Well, I think part of the goal for most riders is to avoid doing double shifts. So if you can set up a gearing arrangement on your bike so that it accomplishes that, you're in one ring almost all the time on almost every ride. Now, that's going to apply to an awful lot of people, the majority of riders. But they can't do that because they've got the gearing set up that came out of the box, where you're finding, oh, I need to shift down to that little ring and get into this gear on the cassette now, or I need to go the other way. If you pay attention to gear fit and you use this analytical tool, this spreadsheet, you can really design a setup that really works for you. And it goes in tandem with another spreadsheet that's a gear speed chart. So you can take, if you're playing around, you can tinker and say, well, I want to look at this 1428 cassette, I want to look at an 1128, and I'll look at a 1132. And I can switch the numbers out in the spreadsheet, and the tool will instantly recalculate the gear values. Once you have that, you can input that into the gear speed chart and see, well, if I do like I did on my bikes, I put a 4630 chain set and a 1428. Now that's really low gearing. People will go, what? Well, I thought, well, let me see how that translates. Well, it turns out my high gear 1446 combination is only an 88 gear inch value. That's pretty darn low. That's about as low as you can get it. Well, I said, well, let's see how fast I'm going if I'm doing that. Well, when I plugged that into the gear speed chart, it turns out I'm doing 30, almost 34 kilometers per hour. Now, that's not all that fast, but it's a pretty good, steady, high cruise rate. You're almost never going to be using that combination. I never use it around here. So whether it's 88 or 112 gear inches in your high gear, it hardly matters for most riders. The point is, you can play around with the variables and plug different configurations in and see what happens, and then see what the gear speed values are if you're using that gearing setup. Quite useful. Might be useful for somebody else. Anyway, this file has maybe 20 tabs in it, and it has everything in there. I record all of my apparel, how much it weighs, how much it costs, where it came from, sizes. I record ride pressure for all my bikes, and I constantly like, well, what's the pressure supposed to be for? I should remember it, but I don't. So I just write it down. I have a chart, all kinds of stuff like that. Anyway, this file goes into great detail with all kinds of stuff. Rear derailleur capacity. You need to figure that out when you're setting up your gearing. How do you cut a chain? What's the formula for cutting a chain? What's the formula for determining gear ratio, gain ratio, gear inches, meters of development? You can do all that. What's the formula you use to calculate a speed in any particular gear combination if you're given the cadence and the wheel circumference. Now you have to be able to figure out wheel circumference. I've got that in here. Basically everything a rider needs to do to be informed and to take care of his own needs is accounted for in here. There's much more to it than what I've just said, but I don't want to blabber on about it. You can watch the follow-up videos and see if any of it's of interest. Now, a lot of people don't want to fuss with a spreadsheet, don't even know what a spreadsheet is maybe, or how to use it. Well, this is pretty simple. I've got it all set up. All you have to do is input some data, which you would know to input, and the spreadsheet calculates everything for you. It's a record-keeping system. It's just like having a home recipe catalog in your kitchen. All the stuff that you like to make, you have a recipe for. Well, there's a way to do that in an organized fashion, and this is a way to do it for tending to bikes, planning for bike builds, owning bikes, torque settings for all my different bikes, you name it, it's in here. So if you're interested, take a look at the follow-up videos and see some of it. And what I'll do is, because the file has a lot to it, what I'll probably do is set up the video with chapters, so you don't have to bore yourself to tears listening to the Unabiker talk about something that you don't give a shit about. You can just click on a chapter and go, oh, how to cut a chain, what's the formula for cutting a chain, or how do you establish what the ideal ride pressure is for your bike, for your weight, for the kit you wear, for the equipment that's on that bike, and the type of road surface you're riding on. Well, yeah, it's in there. So you can just click the chapters and go to anything. You don't have to watch the whole thing. It might end up being, as I typically do, something like 25 to 30 minutes. But if you do watch it from end to end, bless your heart, first of all, but there might be something in there you learn, or something that you see that you can comment back to me and teach me more. Because the main motivation was, when I designed this filing system, was to teach myself. Now, I didn't know stuff about gain ratio and what the difference between gain ratio and gear ratio and meters of development are. So what I do is I write articles. I research the subject, write it out as clearly as I can, just as if I'm going to publish this article. And in the process of doing that, I teach myself things. Now that's just a little technique I've developed as a professional for teaching myself. I've been in a position where I had to pass my knowledge along to other people in an organized fashion. I'd write it up. And in so doing, a lot of times stuff occurred to me that really, maybe I kind of realized, but I never really thought about it. That's just how this all happened. Anyway, I love bikes. I love thinking about bikes. I love being in my shop and working on my bikes. It's the sweetest thing in the world. And if there's anything I do that can be of use to somebody else, I'm going to pass it along. That's just, the reason I do this channel is to amuse myself, but occasionally somebody will comment and say, that was really helpful. And that makes me feel good. I'm not making a penny off this. I don't want to make a penny off of it. So I'm just doing it because I can. Anyway, take a look at it if you're interested, and let me know what you think in the comments. I will never ask you to make a comment or click like or subscribe or ring a bell or any of that happy horse shit. It's just, I don't care. You watch it or don't watch it, it's up to you. And if you do and you like it, that's cool. That's all I care. Anyway, thanks for paying attention. Good riding, y'all.